and welcome to another episode of Through the Web with me, Dagogo.
And me, Tawsif.
And today we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff. We've had a collapse of sorts in the crypto markets, and also Elon Musk is running amok again. So
billionaires are running around scared.
Yes,
by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's been a chaotic week to say the least. But we'll start off small. How was your week? What did you get up to?
Busy, yeah. Very, very productive week. Physically, I'm feeling good. I know I usually give a health update, so I'll carry that on. I think that the Pixel Watch has had a big part to play. Not necessarily Pixel Watch, I guess a smartwatch in general has a big part to play in how I work out, how I measure my, track my fitness and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been very good. I'm trying to hit 10,000 steps, almost at least 6 days a week. The funny thing is, so last Tuesday we did our recording, and we finished just around like 11:30, 11:45ish, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. And by the time we went back home, I saw that I was at 9,960 steps. And I realized it when I had just parked my car, and I looked at the time, and there was only like 30 seconds left till 12 a.m. So I couldn't finish those 40 steps in 30 seconds. I basically had to get out of the car and run if I needed to. I was like, nah, it's fine. Right. I'll let go of the star that Fitbit gives me every time I hit 10,000.
Well, that means the gamification is really working.
It does. It's crazy how the mind, the human psychology works with these things. Just gamify your habits. And I think most of the time it actually works, at least for most people anyway. Yeah,
maybe people can gamify eating healthy or something. And
I'm sure there's there's a lot of habit tracking apps that lets you do that. You can actually gamify like this. I think it's called, I can't remember the name, but I remember there was an app that actually has like characters and avatars, and you level up every time you sign in for like a healthy meal that you've logged in or something like that, and the game character like evolves like Pokemon.
Right.
So it actually gives you a full gaming experience.
So that's literally
a game. So so for you to get your character to a certain level, you actually have to. But I don't know if some people can just tap that. Oh, I've eaten healthy all week, and they're just been binging on.
You don't feel quite right with it. So it's
I agree. I think you're basically cheating yourself.
Exactly.
In that way. So it's ultimately your loss.
Yeah.
Nobody else's. But how's your week?
Yeah, pretty good. Working on 2 videos on the topic I was going to talk about. Which has been good. Also found the time to work on a new track as well.
Oh, nice.
This time it's drum and bass, so quite different. But yeah, cool. It's been really fun.
Just on that note, do you usually how do you plan your music side of things? Do you think that, okay, in 2023, I'm going to release an album, or in the next month, I'm going to work on 3 tracks? Is it like that, or is it just as it comes?
Yeah, literally as it comes. It's been... I don't know, I've been such in a role, like in the past 6 months, like every week or 2 weeks, there's like a new track that I come
6 months, you say?
Yeah.
Nice correlation there of burnouts on not burning out from certain stuff.
What are you talking about? No, but it's not really planned at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like I'll just compile all these. I've just got like a backlog of stuff I've got to put on Spotify because people keep asking, and I'm just like, I haven't done it.
And you had a Triple J thing as well, apparently.
Yeah. So the Triple J is a radio station here. Someone reached out and from a magazine.
They reached out?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Saying that they found my track on the website, which I posted 2 days before. And I was like, you should enter this competition. So yeah, that was cool. But yeah, I've been watching some other interesting stuff as well.
I've been watching a few things here and there, but it was mostly catching up with the chaos around the world this week. But one thing I did follow up on was, the story we talked about last week about Pantone, the company that copyrights colors in a way that Adobe doesn't let you use it. So I was digging deep into the whole idea that, can you trademark or copyright a certain color? And actually some companies are allowed to do that. Depending on the category of the color and the use of color. So it can't be just, red or anything like that. There has to be a very specific shade of the color that certain companies can actually.
Okay, I just got to ask, why is one color legally different from another color? As in, if it's just a stock shade of red and not a very rare red, why is that different from a slightly different red legally? Like,
because the colors that appear, I guess, more in nature, in day-to-day magazines or media outlets, because certain colors are more available and accessible. Therefore, those cannot be copyrighted. I'm assuming that's the reason. Whereas more signature colors that you don't really see often anywhere, you could potentially have a brand built around it and actually have that. So there's actually a story behind it. So certain companies like UPS, for example, the brown that they have is not a regular day-to-day brown. So they have the call to that one. T-Mobile, for example, they have a very specific pink that they use, so much so that once AT&T used that pink in their marketing materials, and they took them to court and won. So again, it has to be a very specific one. So another example is Post-it's yellow shade. It's a canary yellow. So you don't see it anywhere on a regular basis, but when you look at it, that specific yellow, you know that that's Post-it, the company. Even when there are other those sticky notes that you see by other brands, they can't use that specific color. And the story as to why this happened. So in the 90s, there's a company called Qualitex, and they used to sell dry cleaning press pads, and they had a very distinct, terrible green gold color. And competitors, what they used to do is actually started using that specific color to simply, compete against this company. And the drag cleaners used to get confused as to which one was the original one. And because it was such a specific color, they could have a right to that one, so that competitors don't simply do that. And the idea is that legally color alone can at least sometimes meet some basic branding legal requirements for use as a trademark, because sometimes you look at a color and that color is that brand. It works sometimes, but other times the Cadbury tried doing that with their purple and it wasn't allowed.
Right. Interesting. It seems to me like all of these legal precedents have to do with the companies both being in the same space and in similar areas. So it's kind of quite similar to a logo or something if you were to rip that off. So, confusing consumers and everything seems to be at the heart of this. So that makes sense, but I just wouldn't have expected it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because, Aqua, the boy band, or not the boy band, but the pop band.
You're going to say the water, but yeah.
From the 90s, late 90s.
Barbie Girl.
Exactly, Barbie Girl specifically, that song had a music video where they featured a lot of the Barbie pink, which is owned by Mattel.
Yeah.
The parent company which owns Barbie, and they have I think hundreds of category colors that they own, right? So they tried taking them to court over the music video, which they did, but the lawsuit was ultimately dismissed because two different things. I think that's very right. Even though the connotations of the song is being a Barbie girl, and there might be
it's not hurting sales or anything or confusing consumers.
Potentially. But the funny thing is, the judge literally said in the courtroom that the parties are advised to chill. It's an actual quote.
Really,
and they dismissed the whole thing. And so it's such a cool judge.
Wow. Okay, I've never heard such a statement from a prosecutor.
It's crazy because I was just reading up on it, and some of this stuff actually came up on YouTube Shorts, so it was picking up my search history as well. And it's funny because I learned a lot with that one short in 30 seconds than I did, I guess, Googling 15, 20 minutes.
So what was the short about?
It was basically about, I think this guy, just don't remember his name, but I will credit him in the show notes if we do get around doing them. But essentially, he does business cases and stuff like that, and somehow he had a video about colors and brands using colors.
Yeah, and you've never seen that guy before?
I think I might have seen them before.
Okay.
I might have seen. So there was some overlap.
Yeah, because I was going to say that's kind of freaky if like just by Google searches alone.
I mean, no, I was on YouTube searching as well. So
yeah.
potentially,
Yeah. Interesting.
I do a lot of YouTube search for things I want to learn about. So
yeah, but I think we've discussed this before, but YouTube search has gone downhill in the past year or two. I don't know why. Like it seems that it loves to show you like only very limited results, like maybe 1, 2, or 3 that are related, and then the rest are like repeat videos or just stuff that's just completely random.
Stuff you've already seen. As well. So
it's bizarre because it's, you know, if they change their search and it's impacting them negatively, that only hurts their business, I would think, unless they don't want people to search anymore and they just want the algorithm to take them everywhere. But
I think the latter is probably true.
Yeah. But
have you been noticing that spam is a little less on YouTube?
A little less.
A little?
A little less.
I think we've gone in depth about that discussion like a few months ago.
Yeah.
But I've just been noticing that it's a little... you know, having said that, we have like a full-on spam on our last YouTube video.
But YouTube actually changed their controls, the strength of their filters, essentially. So that's got something to do with it. But I think what they should have done is allow for users, not users, but uploaders to actually search by name in terms of the filter, because usually the spammers have either WhatsApp, the word WhatsApp, or the word... or your channel name as well.
That's right.
So if you're allowed to search by that, that would help a lot, but they don't have that yet. But still, it's a lot better than it was before.
Better, yeah. I can see some changes. But what about you? Anything interesting you watched or listened to?
Yeah, quite a few random things. A list of possible future countries. So these are like little places that want to, or are in different stages of getting independence, essentially. So Catalonia was one of them.
Yes.
They had 2 referendums, 2014 and I can't remember, 20 something. And essentially like 80-something% voted to leave, but then the government said that this was not valid. They didn't ratify that vote. So they're still fighting for that. And they like make Catalonia pretty much has the whole economy of Spain riding on its back. So they produce the most and are by far the biggest contributor to the economy. So they're kind of thinking we don't really need the rest of you.
Sounds a little bit like
WA.
Australia.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that as well. And there's some other places in Africa and various ones. But there was another interesting video I did that's just completely unrelated, but it was the biggest explosion ever witnessed by humans. So that happened in 1994. Why's that funny?
Sorry, it's just a very crude joke in my.
Do you want to say it?
No, it's yeah. Okay. Just go on. Sorry,
I might have to ask you after. But yeah, so it happened in 1994 when basically this huge comet. I can't remember the size of it, but quite large. It broke up into like 11 pieces and was just ending up being a train that was heading towards Jupiter. So they managed to, well, it was actually first seen in 1993 by this husband and wife couple astronomer group, CARE, and they essentially like alerted everyone and said, hey, look at this. And then basically the world turned their telescopes to this meteor, essentially. So it impacted Jupiter just like one by one. You could see massive fireballs. And they were saying like some of the explosions would have been, you know, as high as the International Space Station if it hit Earth. That's how big the mushroom clouds would have been. And that's crazy because Jupiter's gravity is so strong. So to have that much energy to even escape that far is immense. And they were saying that the strength of these explosions would have been essentially all of the arsenal of nuclear weapons at once on Earth times 300,000 detonated at once.
Wow.
So it's not just a random useless story because this actually woke the world up. So NASA started tracking asteroids and comets and all of this kind of thing to prevent Earth, and they created a program. I can't remember what it was called, but essentially to track all of these meteorites, and they've got in the order of like 10,000 or more that they've tracked since then. And essentially it also pioneered all those movies of Deep Impact and all of those. In the 90s, that trend of meteorites hitting the Earth was because of that.
Such a big thing on the Hollywood,
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting, and just seeing some of those images was mind-blowing. So that's my little thing. Yeah.
Nice one. I think I'll with space stuff, I go through ebbs and flows of sometimes really like going deep on it, and then sometimes I just don't think about it as much.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things where you're constantly surprised. You're always like, oh wow, like space is so vast and whatever, and then you eat your dinner later, and you're like,
and then it's like, oh, I gotta pay rent next week.
Yeah. And then some story pops up, and you look again, you're like, wow, space is so large, and it's just like, yeah. But it's always good to just have a perspective change and just think about those things every once in a while, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the stories of this week, we're gonna start with the chaos that's been Twitter. And I think there's this one word that sums it up: circus.
I thought chaos was pretty apt as well.
A chaotic circus.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing is that the circus ringleader is well aware of the perception of what's going on, which is interesting.
Is he?
I think so, because he said Twitter's going to do some dumb stuff over the next few months.
I think that should have been his first statement, even before buying out, because now I think he's finally. I haven't seen him get this much. Like he was always a controversial figure, Elon Musk. For those who aren't clear who we're talking about here, but essentially, he's always been a controversial figure. This is the first time in a while where I feel like everyone's on his back. Even the people who just generally support him, or not even support, like who'd be okay with some of his antics, are just losing all grounds of support for him. And I think it's showing through the ridiculous decisions he's kind of making in public that's impacting so many people from top down.
Yeah. I don't. So the thing is, I haven't really been following what people have been saying about Elon in terms of this story, but just by what's happened, I can't imagine that too many people would be happy about it. So I think it ranges from giving him the benefit of the doubt that things will get better to the people that hated him from the beginning, and this is making things even worse, to some people who would be like, I was hopeful, but now that I see what's happening in Twitter.
Exactly. I think the latter group's definitely moving slowly towards away, from supporting him or being okay with him being at the helm. But for those who don't know, they essentially started with the idea that if you pay $8 a month, you get to be verified on Twitter. And it was the blue check that was giving out essentially, which was previously a way of verifying that this specific account is original, official, it's authentic. But now that it's for purchase, a lot of people were just simply getting a way of getting that blue check. But then they somehow broke their own verification system and started adding this official tag, which is a gray check that was at the bottom of people's bios. And in addition to that, people, I think previously who were verified, they had a verified tab that they could only see other verified accounts on. So if there are people who aren't verified, they wouldn't appear on the tab. But because now every person could just pay to get verified, people who were using that account, especially verified accounts, were using that account in a certain way, they were seeing like this tsunami of random people that they weren't following initially just show up on that tab. And that was breaking the entire system of how they use the platform. And obviously that gained a lot of backlash. And then they also kind of tracked back from it within 24 hours. And through that entire time, people were just making all these accounts up and making all these stories up. And I think the funniest part is Elon wanted to do this so that he could stop people from impersonating other accounts. The whole idea of, you can't be a parody account. You have to be very strictly clear that you are a parody account. And there was a lot of weird things happening there. People were saying this is a parody account, but they were still being taken down. But now, because of this whole thing, people were buying the blue checks. They're changing their profile pictures, changing their profile names, and we're tweeting some of the weirdest, some quite funny stuff as well. And messing up the entire system as a result. So, that's...
I saw a couple of those tweets. One was George W. Bush. I don't know if you saw that. not great. I'm not going to repeat what he said there. War crimes, basically. Cheerful war crimes. And then there was another one of Nintendo where
The Mario
where Mario was giving the finger and it wasn't picked up for multiple hours, but it was just that the name was Nintendo Official and it had the check mark. But you have to look at the URL to know that it's not Nintendo. I mean the @ symbol. But the funny thing is Marcus Brownlee tweeted a tweet. I can't remember what it was about. I think it was complaining about Twitter or something else. And then there was a few comments saying, "How do we know this is even you?" And then someone was like, "Well, yeah, you have to look at the @handle to know that it's really like I just remember it's NKVHC as his handle, so I know, but it just takes a couple of seconds. But the fact that we have to do that now,
exactly,
is just such a far cry from what it was before. So I really think from here on, Elon really has to step carefully because I'm not sure if he's fired a lot of the people that would be like advising why some of these things aren't a good idea, because the decisions that is made were a bit short-sighted,
100%,
to say the least.
100%.
So.
And again, it's with other things that he has done in the past that he didn't follow up on, like Dogecoin, for example, or Hyperloop, or any other of the things. Those things, obviously, they brought its own controversies for him, but they weren't as significantly big in terms of the eyes that had on them, right? So it was only people who were interested in tech or crypto in that space. They knew that these things were happening. With something as big as Twitter, it's got the mainstream, it's got the celebrities, it's got regular people, politicians. Everyone's focus is literally on this platform right now. And for him to do what he's doing the way he's doing it, it's just not a good look. Yeah. And I think he's gonna suffer long term from
if he doesn't turn around quickly is what I'm thinking. But just on that point of these fake accounts and all of this kind of thing, Twitter, a lot of people who don't use it and don't really know what's going on with Twitter might just say, oh, it's just another social media platform, but it's not really. Like you can talk to people and all of that, but what it is an information network. And the thing that's important about that is we have world leaders that are on this platform, and things that they say there can affect stock markets and affect geopolitical relations. And having people that can verify themselves and pretend to be whoever, I think this could be quite a dangerous situation if, say, one of these tweets goes viral and it's just not the real person, no one really catches on quick enough, and it's already crashed on index somewhere in the world.
It's already happened, but in a different industry. So the sport industry, for example, is being destroyed with this whole thing because in the sporting world, especially those who follow football, soccer, like how sometimes player transfers and things of that sort are sometimes broken by journalists, and sometimes even announcements are made through certain bodies, right? So I think this is either American football or baseball, I'm not sure. Again, a fake account was created, I think maybe ESPN, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but one of those big outlets, and it was a verified account, and it was a significant kind of breaking news that they faked. It wasn't picked up by anyone up until the end of the day, and it went viral. People started, so multiple media outlets started reposting the story, retweeting the story. It was getting picked up across different platforms as well. And I think that's what people miss, is that Twitter in a lot of ways generate these stories first before anywhere else, and that's especially true.
What it's for,
exactly, and especially true for the world of journalism, especially if you think of certain areas during war or certain areas with the lack of access. You get real time updates that no other platform has been able to. Maybe Reddit to a certain extent, but again, Reddit has a very niche following compared to the more mainstream side. That's Twitter. So you're absolutely correct. I think it's detrimental. It's going to be very scary if it's not being looked at.
Yeah. So as you know, there's a video that I'm working on that's supposed to be coming out about this, but the problem is so much changes all the time. So you're writing and it's like, oh crap, like that's all invalid now, or this, so it's just. It's hard to keep on top of. I knew it was going to be like this going into it, but this is just this is wild.
Yeah, and I think it'll have to be your thumbnail or your title has to be something like Twitter story so far.
Yeah.
The worst thing that Twitter has done for now.
Yeah. But speaking of the Twitter story, there is an interesting tie-in with the next story that we're going to talk about. So when Elon Musk was, those leaked text messages that came out, he was negotiating with Twitter, like to be on the board, and then also looking at when he didn't want to be on the board, looking at funding and all of this. And during this period, there was a individual who approached Elon Musk saying, "I want to sit down and have dinner with you, and I'll sit down." Actually, no. What do you say? I'll loan you. I think it was $9 billion or in that order, in the billions, if you let me build out your crypto part of your app. So Elon at one stage was looking at having Twitter be crypto based. So that is, things will be hosted on the blockchain. There can be payments made through Twitter, and I don't know what cryptocurrency or platform he was thinking of, but within a week he changed his mind. But before he changed his mind, this individual came up to him and asked him about this, and the individual that came up to him was Sam Bankman-Fried, or whatever his name was, I should know this, who was the CEO of FTX.
Wow.
Which collapsed a few
Just
days
the
ago.
same week.
Yeah. So
incredible. So there's actually could be a potential connection, or there is one.
Well, there is one.
Oh.
No, but this happened months ago though.
Right.
It also wasn't, as in the text message between Elon Musk and Sam.
Right.
So the collapse of FTX didn't have to do with what's happening with Twitter now. But it's just interesting that if they did go ahead and started building out that network, and then FTX collapsed, imagine how much trouble Twitter would be in, because that would be serious. Like you've spent all this money.
I mean, it's already incredible where Twitter is right now, and imagine that on top of what's happening.
Yeah. So small world, huh? With small world in the world of billionaires, isn't it?
Yeah. So with Twitter as well, I think Elon Musk also mentioned that he wanted to turn into a bank. I think that was the Verge headline that I saw.
I wasn't sure if it was a bank, but he was
a financial system essentially.
Right. He was calling it the X app or something. So the app of everything. Yeah.
Kind of similar with the China's.
Yes.
As a counterpart.
Yeah. So that crypto element was part of it.
Right. So
I think for Elon, he has a problem here because he's under pressure, because in order to fund a lot of this, the $44 billion they needed for Twitter, he had to sell a lot of Tesla stock, right? So he keeps offloading this Tesla stock, and
that's being impacted.
Yeah, it's making an impact there, but also on the loans that is taken out, I think it's estimated at $1 billion per year he has to pay back just in interest.
Yeah.
So he has to make this thing profitable and quickly, because he's burning through his cash by just
being there right now,
and what it's doing isn't helping any of this. So
no, and I don't know if you saw, but there was actually an email that he sent out 24 hours ago that got leaked, and this was his first official communication, by the way, as the leader of the circus. But the email came at 11:39 p.m. Pacific time, so by the time pretty much everyone's gone to bed. But his email literally began as, sorry, this is my first email to the whole company, but there's no way to sugarcoat this message. And then he basically went on to say that the future of Twitter is dire, and without significant subscription revenue, there's a good chance Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn. We need roughly half of our revenue to be subscription. That's only part of the longer email. Obviously, you can check it out online, but that's been just doing the rounds of keeping the people at the top of the exec level on Twitter really at bay. And this is amidst so many people quitting, resigning, being laid off within Twitter itself. It's just. It's literally that meme of everything's fine, the dog just sitting with everything burning around him.
I don't know. I'm not sure if subscriptions are going to really cut it though. Like, it's going to be so hard to get all of that revenue, and advertisers are running away as well. So that's another thing. But it's going to be so hard to get all of that revenue from subscriptions, because what are people paying for? Like a verification badge, yes, and then a few other perks, but it's just not a lot of people that use Twitter who aren't journalists and who are just on that platform would be like, oh,
would you have paid $8 to simply use Twitter? Like if there was no anything else added, like say Elon Musk comes in, none of this crazy stuff's been happening. His first communication is, hey, if you want to use Twitter, here's $8 or maybe even a little less, $4 a month. Everything you have as is will obviously make.
Okay, so what happens if I need to know what the other side of the coin is if I don't pay? What do I get?
You don't get to use Twitter.
But, so
it's entirely paywall. Literally paywall.
Locked away.
Locked away.
So the thing is, because it's locked away, I would know that a lot of other people wouldn't want to pay, so probably the engagement and everything would go down. So maybe not in that stage. Yeah, I'll pay for a little bit to check it out, but if it's empty in a ghost town because
nobody else is there.
Then
I think the people who would end up paying would be people who could afford it, and essentially the people who could afford it would be like journalists, media companies. Maybe a lot of users who don't really care for Twitter would not pay for it. But this is funny because a lot of people, I was just going to say that maybe that would be a way of weeding trolls out who wouldn't want to pay, but
that literally hasn't worked.
That hasn't worked in any circumstances anyway. So maybe just the overall idea of paywalling, I think probably would have, even it would have taken a few people off the side.
You think that would have been better?
I think so, because that way he would and then add on features, over the coming quarters, slow, one by one.
Maybe, but I think MKBHD did a pretty good video about this last week about what Twitter could do to.
I didn't see that video yet.
Okay.
Was it the Dear Twitter one?
Yes, yeah. Twitter could do to increase revenue, but he was kind of saying that they could use like the YouTube model where basically they provide creators with tools and then payment incentives for them to create content, and then that way you get like native content creators that want to be on that platform, and you can generate revenue from the ads that you run across those videos. So if Twitter did a long form video integration in some way or another, that could be quite a good way. Because you don't agree?
No, I agree. I think that's the model, but then that's what YouTube's for anyway. I think again that moves away from Twitter's original core ethos or the base model on which the foundation of Twitter was built on.
I'm not saying that this is like a integration that's in your face everywhere, but it's kind of like split off into. It's
like,
still
like how shorts and
videos it's still in
is.
the app, but it's kind of out of the way.
Got it.
But then who knows how well that could work? The adoption rate will probably be slow. It may not even work out at all. So it's okay. Let me just summarize everything with this. Like I wouldn't want to be Elon Musk right now trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people wouldn't want to be in his shoes at this moment. But I think MKBHD also has this one point that he makes regularly is that if you don't add features to things and ask for money, it's just not.
I think it was just the rule was you don't make people pay for things that were once free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's his personal rule as well for the stuff that he does. But again, it is a tricky situation, and overall, I don't know how he's gonna make that money back because advertisement in general is just dying everywhere.
I think it's literally the worst time because we had from let's say 2017 to 2021, just people were pouring money into anything. Like you could make money by just
existing.
Yeah, literally. People were selling farts in jars. No, but advertising was easy to come by. People were throwing money. Like the economic climate was completely different. But the point at which Elon Musk bought Twitter is probably the worst time.
100%.
It's a lot harder. It's like playing on hard mode.
Exactly. Imagine if you bought it at the start of
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
It could have been
paid for itself.
It could have been crazy.
Because the thing is, at that time, the stock markets were extremely reactive to like good news. So it was Elon Musk is buying Twitter is going to transform it. And then he would have gone up to like $50 billion value, and then that's it. Like he's made the money back. But now it's like everyone's cautious, doesn't want to invest in anything or put their money in the wrong place. So it's just this massive headwind that has got to deal with as well. Which
overall as well, there's this whole idea of advertisement driving the creator economy. It's been around for so long, right? When you look at magazines, Reader's Digest, they then moved to subscription model. So I don't think it's totally out of the, it's totally crazy to think of a subscription model that he's talking about, but then to come in all of a sudden, create havoc, and then say half of our revenue has to come from subscription. That's where things get a bit difficult.
Yeah, because if Twitter was building this up slowly and there was some path where people could say, okay, yeah, like I'm starting to get value here, but it's just a big unknown. It's like half of our revenue needs to come from subscriptions. We need to get these subscriptions up. And then everyone's like, and subscribe for what? What happens? What's the consequences for the platform? What do I get? It doesn't seem like a very convincing deal to a lot of people, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to come back to the FTX story, but I'm going to just transition into the story of Meta this week, which is in relation to what Zuckerberg, what you just said anyway, and then what Zuckerberg also said. Basically, Meta has laid off, which is the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. They have laid off 13% of their entire workforce, which is roughly around 11,000 employees, which is incredible. And of course, they're also extending a hiring freeze for the first quarter of next year. Over the whole course, they've, since 2004, they have had the largest ever number of workers, which is totaling around 87,000 people or so. But now, obviously, that's been brought back down with the job cuts. Just I guess on a side note, they have been, for those who lost their jobs in the US, they have been paying severance for 16 weeks of their base pay and 2 additional weeks of everywhere they've worked at the company. And also their families will have healthcare paid for 6 months or so. So I think they're trying to take a more humane approach to this. But then again, 11,000 people losing their livelihood all of a sudden is not a good look for Zuckerberg. And he's gone out and, has been taking accountability and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why he, the reason why this is happening is what interests me here is because he says that it's because of the big surge in online commerce that led to the big spike in revenue over the 2020-2021 period during the whole pandemic, as you have just mentioned, and he thought it was going to be a permanent shift, and that's why he was increasing spending. He was working, okay, this huge jump. Let me spend some of this money on the Metaverse, which is going really well from said no one. But I think that, along with the increasing situation with the global economic downturn, with the TikTok kind of taking up a huge chunk. It's a lot of those things, I think, in combination is why Meta is struggling. But he only focuses on the the e-commerce side of things, and he doesn't want to talk about the Metaverse, which I think is quite interesting because I think he still really, really believes that's the place to be. That's what he's building on. Spent like billions and billions of dollars already on it. It's incredible. I think he's putting his all into the Metaverse.
Yeah, I think it's because he sees it as a long shot that's going to be, it's going to take some time, but it will pay off in real dividends if he's the first, people all start using VR for one reason or another in 5 years, and then they're placed at the position that they need to be able to just control that entire industry, which is projected to be, I don't know how many billions of dollars it's supposed to be. But the thing is, it's risky, and the way they're going about it now, it's below the standard of even what's out there, which is shocking. So he may have this grand vision of the Metaverse as the future, but the way the company is pushing themselves, they have a lot of cool hardware in the pipeline for the future. There's a lot of interesting research, which is all capital intensive, and that's fine. But their product, which they spent billions of dollars on, and which is supposed to be that gateway to get people into the Metaverse, as in the Horizon world and all of that, it just isn't panning out. So investors are seeing this and they're getting scared, and stocks are crashing. So it just looks like it's just a time to save costs wherever you can. And unfortunately that results in 11,000 people leaving. But I do think that he still does, definitely believe in the Metaverse. I think that's where he sees the future, but it's just so hard to kind of see them I don't know, sticking the course and investors being happy with what they're doing. I think the more that he sticks with it, the more money he pours into it. I think investors are going to get even more shaky about Facebook's standing.
I mean, do you think he should stick it through? Yeah, the whole metaverse idea.
So I personally, think it's risky because the metaverse, I think in one form or another, we will, like, that's the way that technology seems to be pointing. We will get there. But if that's in 5 years or 15, I don't know. So say that he is just too early and the time just isn't yet. We just don't have enough. The technology is not good enough. The adoption rate, all this, the pieces don't come together properly right now. And if it's too early and is off by 15 years, that's, you know, that's not good. But if it's off by 5 years, then it's like a maybe, you know? So it's hard to say, but yeah, it just depends on how far out the actual reality is.
I mean, if it's that long, then Facebook will become MySpace, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Essentially.
Like that. So that this is their pivot. Like, what are they going to pivot to if Zuckerberg, like in 5 years' time, is like, sorry, I made a big mistake. The metaverse isn't yet. Like, what are they going to do? Like their Facebook business, who uses that anymore? And Instagram's even like not, you know, doing as well as it once was. So
yeah, and it's also going back to the whole advertising discussion. Is that advertising's dollar spend is also down within the meta world, because I think obviously Apple had a big part to play with their whole privacy tracking. So those who don't know, Apple phones now allow users to stop tracking, so that, you know, the ads can't follow you. Obviously, that means that advertisers they don't get the same amount back on the amount that they're spending on Facebook ads, Instagram ads, on WhatsApp ads, and so forth, and therefore the overall Meta's earning is down, which in turn affects the company's bottom line, right? So overall, advertising is also kind of slowly decreasing. It just seems like everything is going wrong with Meta, because even like social media usage in general, just on a broader level, and there was a headline that I saw, I can't remember which newspaper, or maybe it was a LinkedIn post, where someone said that social media is dead, essentially. That whole idea of social media. I mean, we put in Twitter, TikTok as social media companies, but these aren't really social media. YouTube has a social component to it, but these aren't social media.
So you're talking about literal networks
That Facebook reinvented or invented in some ways, right? The whole idea of Facebook groups, being able to engage in comments, being an authentic, real human being, and communicating with friends and family and sharing. Like, Instagram and Facebook were famous for these things. Twitter, not so much. Snapchat a little bit. TikTok's completely, like, not even close, right? So the idea of social media is potentially dead.
That's an interesting take. The more I think about it, the more it kind of does make sense. Like, people obviously aren't on Facebook anymore, and the younger people kind of went to Instagram, but that's kind of...
That's also, younger people being millennials, even the younger people are going to TikTok.
Yeah, well, yeah, so let's I don't know, it's still young, but not as young as young.
The youngs are planning up something else.
Yeah, it's like toddler TikTok or something. No, but... yeah, it feels like there's no big app where everyone truly connects with each other, you know? So TikTok, when people are on it, it's always watching and consuming, or there's not much, you know, there's obviously comment sections, but that's like YouTube and anything else. It's not really that network effect that original social networks had. So I think that's quite interesting. I think that is an interesting point that I haven't really thought about. So I don't know if there's a space for that, or if people are just sick of it. There's not going to be a new one, because people are like, I've seen this story before, I don't want to get involved. I know Be Real was an attempt, but that wasn't even a social network, really. That was more of a...
Same idea as TikTok in a lot of ways, yeah.
So, yeah, that's very interesting. And I do agree with that. I think maybe it's the trend is down for social networks. So I don't know if there's going to be anything that will replace that. It just becomes WhatsApp groups and
and personal messaging. And I think that's where, again, like, you know, I use a lot of Meta tools, but not Facebook. I use WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. I use Instagram to share things, to consume content. But again, that idea of posting on Facebook has really gone down over the years for me, and I'm sure it's the same thing for many people. I don't even log in as much as I used to, and I used to be on like 24/7 on Facebook.
It's interesting because most people with kids love to post. So
yeah,
I've just noticed that, like
I think
that's all I see now.
But that's also because you could be going into that age group where a lot of people around you are having kids.
That's true, but the thing is, that's the only category. Like I really feel like that's most of what the posts are.
That and that gecko video.
Gecko.
From last episode. For those who haven't heard the last episode, you should really...
I'm getting flashbacks. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of that hamster who's like staring into the distance and there's Vietnam War helicopters. Yeah, that's kind of...
but no, I think social media is really... I agree that it's probably dying. And what I think Zuckerberg's trying to do is really bank in on something that he believes will be the next frontier. And again, he could end up looking like a genius, as he has done in the past with Facebook and taking the gamble on social networking in general. Or now he could really look like a complete moron.
I do want to say, though, when you say gamble for social networks, I don't really think it was, because Facebook saw what
Blueprints
MySpace was doing, and that was working, and they had like,
that's right.
It blew up so fast. I was like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And no one else was, like, in a big way. So
MySpace, High Five, MSN Messenger, like these things, were somewhat of, even the earlier days of ICQ, MIRC, all those kind of...
I didn't know.
You never used them?
No.
You even used those chat rooms that existed, really?
Oh, okay. So when I was a kid, I remember being in chat rooms, but I don't know what they were called. I don't even know.
So I used to be on MIRC because my brother used to be on it a lot, and that's how I found out about it. I made some pen pals, like literally, humans across. Like,
across the thing that was so cool.
It was like the very first kind of, like there were like chat rooms and there were like mods within those chat rooms, and it was like really, really. Like the very first, I guess, attempt at any sort of social networking or communication across strangers or anonymous people, right?
Yeah.
But going back on that note, I think like they had that blueprint with that. So I agree that maybe it wasn't total gamble, but with the metaverse,
it definitely is
more of a gamble.
Yeah.
More
because
of a gamble.
Maybe he's done it once. He's like, I've created this new field. Look, I'm one of the biggest companies in the world. I can do it again.
Exactly.
And the metaverse is the thing.
But capital as well.
But now, now things aren't going so great. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts under pressure. And I think he's still majority decision maker. Like it's just the dictatorship of Zuckerberg still within Facebook, which is pretty crazy.
I mean, again, like the board's probably thinking it's worked so far, so let's let him kind of keep going as much.
Yeah,
as
but it works until it doesn't.
Exactly, and that's the scary part of, I guess, being someone at that position where you want to. Like, do you push something or do you just stay stagnant and not do anything? I mean, you look at the reason why we have smartphones with touchscreens is because Steve Jobs literally had the vision of changing behavioral patterns of the entire human landscape, essentially, of how they use or communicated with smartphone or with phones, really, with cell phones. And the idea that, I'm going to make you want a phone with no buttons, that's a gamble. And obviously that one that paid off. But imagine that hadn't paid off. There were so many people saying, who wants a smartphone or who wants a phone with no buttons? Like there were all those naysayers at that time as well, right? And that's been true for so many other tech innovations over the years, where there's always a bit of push whenever it's something too extreme. But obviously we hear about the ones that has worked and not so much about the ones that didn't work. And we don't know if this one will end up working or not.
But I think it all just keeps going back to like what the metaverse is, as in Facebook's metaverse, their literal product. It's just, I think I have to show you the video that I watched on it.
I think I have to see it. I haven't seen the one that you...
It's so bad. And I keep saying that. Like I couldn't believe it. It was like a small game developer of like 10 people could have done the same thing.
It's, and I think the way he sees it as well with internet, like internet is defragmented in a lot of ways, with Google owning part of search, with YouTube and so forth. And Facebook was that big player for so long, where it was the internet for so many people. Like phones at one point, remember they used to have Facebook phones, and even phones in developing nations would come pre-installed with WhatsApp and Facebook, because that's how big and important they were. So I think they want to reclaim something ahead of time, because whatever the next frontier is in the world of internet and media, if they can capture it before anyone else, I think that's what he's banking on.
Yeah.
And it's such a...
Just thinking about it though, in your opinion, what else is there? Like,
I can't think of anything else. It's AR, VR, Metaverse. That's it.
Yeah.
Like what else is there for you to, like, even if you think of, 20, 30 years ago, when people used to think, okay, what would technological advancements look like? Star Trek using video calls, or the smart. Well, like we have all that, like flying cars. It's that some people say, but I just saw this interesting clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, "Oh, we already have flying cars." It's like, oh, what is it? Like helicopters. Like there's no way you could actually have flying cars. In theory, it makes sense, but for something to be able to work at that level, that's what helicopter does. Like the thrust that it has to create to hover and move around, like helicopter mimics that angle. So
but anyway, we don't want to get into that. But back to the Facebook thing. Yeah, but what's the next technology that's coming up? Literally, unless it's like a behind the scenes thing, like quantum computing or AI, I don't really see like a consumer
level.
A consumer level product, or web idea, or I don't know, unless it's like transforming payments through some crypto, like FTX.
Even they had Facebook was into the world of currency as well.
They tried.
They tried through Messenger as
with
well.
the Libra.
So I think exactly with Libra. So I think they've had this exact same conversations in the boardrooms, and they all got asked the same question: like, what do you think is the next big consumer level frontier that's going to break through? And honestly, it's literally AR, VR, Metaverse. That's all
I can think of right now. Yeah. But so are you saying we're at the end of consumer technology?
I think so.
This is the end.
I think We've made it. Unless you're teleporting me somewhere else, I can't see much else coming along.
I think there's a famous...
There's a reason why we are in this room talking about podcasts and not, creating stuff. Maybe we don't have that level of foresight. But anyway, sorry, I'm saying.
There was a famous quote by, I can't remember who it was, I think a CEO of something, but this was in like 18 something. And he was like, everything that has been invented will be invented, has been invented. So he was obviously wrong, and we probably are too, but we just don't know.
And I think a lot of the...
Neither does Zuckerberg, sorry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that do, sprout essentially with the height of technology is where the world heads towards, and that creates a need or creates a vacuum for a new tech to be invented. So perhaps in the current setting that we are, that's all we can see, as far as we can see. But maybe in 5 years' time, there could be something that has happened globally that requires a new technology, which in turn produces the next big thing. So until that happens, again, with whatever we have available, with my kind of range that I have, limited range that I have, this is all that I can see. Like that's exactly where it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna say just this one last thing. If it's not AR or VR or the metaverse, like it'll be some kind of potential that a particular AI algorithm unlocks for a consumer device or something. That's just the two things I'm linking together. I don't know what it could be, but I imagine that maybe it could come from that angle, where it's just like, I don't know, some research firm or OpenAI comes up with this specific AI that does something, and everyone's like, oh wow, this means I can do this, and this now. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the FTX stuff?
Very briefly, I think.
So I haven't really gotten into that world. I've been seeing headlines.
Yep.
So for someone who's kind of been jumping around from headline to headline, what's been happening to Dagogo?
Well, essentially, the second largest exchange in crypto has essentially collapsed. So this has been called the Lehman Brothers event of crypto.
That's how big.
One guy in Yahoo actually said that this was worse than Bernie Madoff or Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos. Yeah. So the thing is, both of those were a complete fraud angle. So I don't data isn't really out yet on whether fraud was committed, but things are a bit shady. So to backtrack, essentially what happened was Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the CEO of FTX, which is this exchange, and essentially there was another investor in this exchange, which was the biggest exchange, Binance. So earlier on, when FTX was getting started, Binance had a large share in the company just to invest essentially, and then they decided to sell their shares, but they exchanged it for the FTX token, which is called FTT. And the thing about this token is it's not really traded that openly on the market. It's mainly just for transaction fees and just a few other things. So it's not that liquid. So this has a bit of foreshadowing here. So about 2 weeks ago, there was a report by Coinbase that came out saying that it looks like these FTT tokens were being, I guess, exchanged in quite a very shady way with another kind of like a crypto hedge fund called Armada, which is owned by Sam as well. Yeah. But the Binance CEO didn't like this, and then on Twitter he was saying, hey, like due to recent news, we're going to sell a lot of our stake or all of our stake of FTT tokens. And I think that was in the order of 3 to 4 billion or something like that. So they sold those tokens on the market, and because it was very illiquid, there wasn't much of it, much liquidity around this token, the price just absolutely plummeted. So people were panicking and trying to withdraw their funds, and then when they did that, FTX didn't have the liquidity to cover. So what they'd been doing was essentially using this FTT token as collateral. So they were doing other investments and all this stuff and saying, hey, we're good. We got like all these billions of dollars of collateral, but it was all in FTT. So essentially it just wiped out all of their collateral, and then people couldn't get their withdrawals out. So there was a bank run, and then there was a halting and a freezing of withdrawals. And it's just a messy situation now. So FTX is looking for a bailout. Binance said, hey, we're going to buy you guys out, which I think would be illegal if this wasn't crypto. I think announcing something and saying you're going to sell, price falling, and then you stepping in and buying, I think that would be illegal. But anyway, so the Binance CEO said, we're going to buy. But then he looked at the books and said, sorry, this is unrecoverable, so we can't do it. So now they're still searching around for buyers, and no one knows what's going to happen.
Because I saw the last headline where Binance they had announced that they were going to buy it.
Yeah,
but
they're backed out. Within 24 hours, they said
that is incredible. So now FTX is really...
Yeah, so everyone who has money in there is absolutely panicking, because it could mean like a 90% haircut or even 100%. So it was at $20-something the week before, and now it's at like $3. So it's pretty hefty, and there's a lot of all the government agencies have just sprung into action. FTC is coming in. There's a lot of different securities, SEC, and all this that they're looking at this very closely, because this could change the whole of crypto. Because now this was like, it wasn't just some little exchange. This was like the second biggest, where it was sure. Like this was like a guaranteed safe place to put your money. And now that that's not safe,
what is safe?
Yeah. So that's kind of, this particular liquidity issue and people fearing for where safe or not. Like that's what happened in 2008. So I can see the Lehman comparison.
Yeah.
Right now it's just in the process of figuring out what's going to happen. Is there going to be prosecution? Is there going to be a bailout? We don't know yet. So that's where the story is.
Where do you think crypto's heading? Like it's been like negative news after negative news.
I do think that in my opinion, I think this is just part of the process of clearing out the rot and the stupid stuff within crypto, because I still think that the underlying concept of, say, Bitcoin, maybe not as a medium of exchange, but I still do see there's a place for these kind of technologies in the future, because this kind of thing to do with exchanges going bust and all this and being hacked was quite a thing a few years ago, like Mt. Gox that got hacked, and it was just, that doesn't happen anymore as much because we figured out how to deal with that. So I think it's just going to be one of those teething problems with that, but I can understand how it's not a vote of confidence for a lot of people. Yeah. But I still, in summary, I still think crypto is going to be okay.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and listening, and I hope you got something out of it. And we'll see you again next time. Cheers.